Welcome to GOLT Talk, your podcast for technology and innovation in the legal profession. If you're searching for solutions to revolutionize your legal practice, you're in the right place. 10 minutes pure, actionable product insights from CEOs shaping the future of legal technology. And here is your host, Tom Pfennig.
Welcome to GOLT Talk, your podcast for innovation and technology in the legal and compliance space. Today, we celebrate the 30th recording and the final episode of Sequel 3. On this special occasion, we will venture into new territory. I am more than delighted to welcome a special guest, Brian Tang. Brian is the founding executive director of Law, Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship, the lab that has been winning many awards at the University of Hong Kong's Faculty of Law, in short, LITE Lab at HKU. Brian's LITE Lab courses are one of the first from law schools worldwide to incorporate generative AI. Brian is also the co-chair of the Singapore-based Asia Pacific Legal Innovation and Technology Association, in short, ALITA, and was recently appointed to the Hong Kong Department of Justice's Consultation Group on Law Tech Development. Finally, Brian spent nearly 20 years at global investment bank Credit Suisse in Hong Kong and worked as a lawyer for Sullivan & Cromwell in New York and California and Mallesons in Perth, Australia. So with that, welcome to GOLT Talk, Brian.
Thank you so very much for having me here, Tom.
Awesome. So today we are diving into a topic that stirs up a bit of excitement, frustration, and also some existential threat: the digital transformation in the legal and compliance space. So over the next minutes, we'll talk about the good, the bad, and well, we will see and find out. So let's get started. You've been traveling the world and can claim having insights only very few legal professionals can offer. We'll go into a high-paced, interactive dialogue with your thoughts and opinions on some pressing topics. We call it Insights from Reality. Let's stir up the pot a little and talk about the change conundrum in law firms, the big elephant in the room. From your point of view, what's the future of the billable hour?
Well, thanks so much, Tom. So of course, that seems to be topic du jour. So as you had shared, I've quite a bit of my career in big law and also in-house. So I have a few perspectives on that. I think that model is being challenged. I think that a proportion of the law firm revenue will be shifting away from that. In terms of the extent and the rate of the change, I think it will differ depending on the practice group and depends on the jurisdiction as well. So I'll give you an example. So as you have shared, my background is in capital markets. So in Hong Kong, I did IPOs and bonds, and those are all capped fee. So for a very long time has been the case. There is no billable hour in relation to that. There is a quote that needs to be kept to. But in other areas, that is not the case. So I think it's a matter of law firms having to change the business model.
Let's stay there for a second. What does it really mean in practice, changing the business model?
So I also work at that intersection of law of technology and the technology of law. And one of the things in my class, we actually talk about the business model canvas. And so the law firm actually, as a business model, is one of the simpler. It generally charges, there's a fixed cost, and then it charges by the hour based on the resources of the human beings that are there. But, one of the things that lawyers cannot do is they can't make money while they're sleeping, right? That's what software can do. So that's a promise of productization, right? So if as law firms consider productization modalities, as they consider alternative lines of services, which are not traditionally the ambit of lawyers who have that law degree and also have the license qualifications. There are more ways in which lawyers and law firms can serve their clients, the in-houses, because by the way, the in-houses now have alternative modalities. They've got ALSPs, they've got consultants coming in, they've got legal ops. So the clients themselves are looking at alternative ways in which to serve their needs. Law firms, if they want to be in on the running, they're not built like Big Four. But increasingly, I think if they want to serve their different clients, they need to learn how to modify new ways of making money. And some of them can be quite good, but some of them will have quite substantial ramifications in relation to how they manage a business and how they resource a business.
I like the term making money when we are sleeping. That's everyone's dream, I think. But does it also mean to move from Wall Street to Main Street? If I can use software, and we use software is a commodity, is a branded commodity, isn't that also changing the perception of lawyers in this world?
Potentially, yes, but there's a slightly different provocation I might have here. So again, I came from big law, and so I was on Wall Street, right? So serving the big banks, the big companies that are listings and the like. But there are lots of segments, right? Lawyers serve so many segments of society. So I think my background and experience is more in that realm, although increasingly because of my work with legal tech, I am better understanding the mindset of SME law firms and chambers and like as well. So I think one of the interesting provocations is the emergence of AI native firm, right? And yes, these could be the entrepreneurial younger lawyers that are creating a brand new firm to do this, but it could also be a partner at a firm that has a decent practice and says, you know what, I can make more money if I can automate a few things. I can use AI in this way. And therefore, the really interesting challenge that's been put out there is maybe in the next 3 years, there'll be some of these AI native firms that will breach the AM 100. Right, where, as you may know, it's measured by PPP, profits per partner, and RPL, which is revenues per lawyer. The less partners, less lawyers, the higher profitability. So I think that is something that requires a different mindset and maybe more partners being kind of agent bosses, being able to manage different agents rather than human associates, or both, ideally both.
It kind of reminds me of Tesla being a small player 15 years ago and breaking into the combustion engine market, obviously successfully, and many other EV makers have followed. And now the established players are struggling heavily. If I use that analogy and apply it to your projection, it means there is probably emerging players coming into this market and massively disrupting big law. Is this what you would potentially foresee?
I think the potential definitely is there. I mean, I think there are lots of interesting things that AI can do well. There's some things still it can't do well. The question is what the client is willing and able to accept for lots of different reasons, and what the role of lawyer will be. So the provocation is, I think you said from Wall Street to Main Street. Some people say, is it Wall Street to Silicon Valley, right?
Right. So speaking of Silicon Valley, it's the perfect segue to another topic I would like to address. And let's shift gears here and talk tech, or better, tech overwhelm and tech confusion. How can we not drown in this ocean of legal tech offerings?
For those that are following the AI space, I mean, the rate of change is truly astounding, right? So GPT-5 just dropped, and all the responses and the feedback, including the not so positive ones, are coming fast and furious. So with the new capabilities, new features, new user interfaces, it can be overwhelming, especially for GCs and law firm innovation leads, who actually have to make a buying decision. You have to make a decision that will last them a longer time, right? And then it has to be a decision that will allow for adoption rates as well. So, I mean, I spent time in the fintech space, especially in RegTech, and that's when I learned about doing more B2B tech. And, one of my jokes is that when you compare the brochures of so many products, it's difficult to tell them apart, right? So how does one sift through so many and evolving products? So I think that is definitely a challenge that a lot of people who have to make decisions in this fast-growing market have to grapple with.
So will the bush be trimmed anytime soon, or are we stuck in this jungle for some time?
Well, I think while valuations run hot, we will not be wanting for choice, which means that lots of new things sprouting up, which, from a startup perspective, that's a good thing, right? That's how innovation works. I think the issue is the bandwidth of the users and the business decision makers to trial them, to make their own assessments and predictions before committing to any single platform. So I think, again, I was in finance, which is regulated and quite relatively conservative because it is regulated, but they have lots more cash. Law firms, on the other hand, are a little bit more conservative. So, and I'm not used to making these kinds of decisions. So it is complicated. So I think for now, it will be a jungle. I think the competition is hotting up, especially if you really do need billions to actually grow this. There's going to be M&A. And then as we've seen with the recent releases, it's complicated because just because they have a new version doesn't mean that it's better. So I think we continue to have interesting time.
Closing this topic with the final question then, who will survive and why?
So my take is a little bit biased coming from Asia Pacific. I joke, and I'm sure it's the case in lots of jurisdictions as well, but we're very price sensitive out here. So and not everybody wants to or can pay for a Rolls Royce of legal AI. So I think that there is a space for some point solutions that are well priced and solve real use cases to find homes in Asia Pacific. And I suspect it may be similar in lots of other jurisdictions as well. Do not underestimate the ongoing confidentiality and data protection and sovereignty concerns of various corporate and law firm users. And the legal profession is still grappling with finding suitable measures for ROI to determine what success really looks like for that particular firm and that particular user.
So translating this into my own perspective, those who are not just offering legal technology, but a package which includes the ROI part, which includes the implementation, includes the change management part, really a super wrapper of all the elements of a transformation, those have the greatest chance of survival.
Potentially, I think yes. But my analogy will be as follows. That's what the Big Four have been doing. So they offer the consultancies plus the leads to various technologies that they have tested already. So that's what they have done. But again, I come back to pricing, because not everybody can afford a Big Four to do that. Some people want to do it themselves. But I think producers of these solutions, and I do definitely agree with you, it's a combination of product and services to help assure the ultimate buyers and users that yes, they're making a decision that will last them a decent amount of time, right? But also that they need the assistance to be able to convince senior management of their ROI, but also adoption. Because there's nothing worse than actually signing up a contract to do something, and then, how do you actually measure success, and is it reachable, and is it appreciated? And then also, how do you get adoption? In a lot of firms, people are sitting on, legal tech that is not being used across the firm.
You're giving me the perfect segue to our next segment in our podcast. Another 400-pound gorilla, I would call it, the inefficiency secret. And I think this will be a little bit uncomfortable for us and maybe the viewers as well. But from my point of view, if you look at how legal services are being rendered in law firms, for example, there are multiple layers of review before a memo goes out. In in-house teams, multiple layers of approvals before a decision is being made. Still, lots of mundane, repetitive work being done manually. So with all these inefficiencies, unfortunately, still present in our profession, and I would also argue, like you, I've been seeing this not just in some pockets, but all over the world, AI will expose these inefficiencies as it requires efficiencies, data, structure, workflows. Is this one of the greatest bottlenecks for legal tech adoption?
I think so. So let me share a little an anecdote. So my LITE Lab actually works with in-houses in relation to proof of concepts. It's undergraduate students actually working on technology solutions using no-code, low-code tool, and now AI. One of the things that we found is often, as you say, I ask our counterparties firstly, what is your pain point? And then now outline your workflow. And then, how are you managing your data? Where can we get the data, right? So again, the more advanced ones actually have that in mind, have further down the process. They may actually have legal ops already. They may have teams that are in innovation leads. They're working with their corporate innovation leads in relation to those. But many are further down the track, especially here in Asia. So I think there really is a space where one needs to prepare themselves in terms of what their pain points are, what the workflows are, how they handle their data, before they even sign up to any technology.
This relates to the future generation of lawyers and legal professionals having the privilege to study at your Hong Kong University. Now, when we talk about the presence, the as is, we have to deal with a different mindset. And in terms of that mindset, what is your observation globally? You have the early adopters, the vanguards that drive progress, but would you agree that there is really a large majority still looking, still doubting, still questioning the change And how would we be able to go into those mindset blockers?
So I think maybe linked to something that we had touched upon, which is, that depends on what circles you're in and what universes you're in, right? There are those that have the mindset, they're in particular social media circles, they're in the conference circuit that are actually preaching the converted, or as I joke, sometimes they're tourists. So I think right now that there's enough media on AI and enough clients are even nudging enough conservative partners to kind of consider this. Digital transformation needs more than a tone from the top. It needs the tone in the middle, right? And so therefore, and that means changing existing training and also incentives for both internal users and business model. At LITE Lab and ALITA, we actually run roundtable series, and I run 2 roundtables regularly, one for law firms, one for in-house departments. So that's great because we talk about legal tech and AI initiatives and developments, but this group is growing. But especially as part of the DOJ Legal Advisory, a panel that you mentioned, I've had the chance to interact with members of the Law Society, and also in Hong Kong, there's a Hong Kong Small and Medium Law Firms Association. So again, it's able to get more views, but as you say, there's so many people out there that are not in the room. So I think we do need to find ways to engage those people that are not in the room on this journey, because even once they get in the room, then it's when they have to put their hands on their back pockets and pull up money. That's when even gets tougher. But if you can't even get them in the room, that's a huge barrier. I think that is improving. But again, that's part of the legal not even for legal, but any tech adoption issue.
Right. You threw in the word universe, and I would completely agree. There are different universes out there with the early adopters at the conference and at your roundtables, and then the rest. Let's just put it this way. And just staying on this topic a little bit, how can we get those 2 cohorts to talk to each other more? Because there must be some cross-pollination, those who have already been there, done it, learned from it, to share the good, the bad, and the ugly with those who are just starters. However, also to give them comfort and confidence to go into this journey. Otherwise, I see a growing bifurcation and unfortunately a lot of losers in this dynamic. What is your, beyond the roundtables, which are only a small scale cohort, I would argue, potentially scalable solution to bring these people together?
Oh, I love that provocation. So a few things. Number one, the reality though is a lot of firms are competitors, right? So some firms are not actually willing to share what they're doing because they don't want, they ultimately want to present themselves in the best light in front of their own clients. So there is that natural competitive element in the marketplace. So then what you actually do need are industry-wide initiatives. Now, in places in Asia, which I can speak more to, jurisdictions like Hong Kong and now, Singapore in the first case, right? So Singapore is very progressive. And now Hong Kong, you have initiatives led by the government, whether it is from the Ministry of Justice or Department of Justice or the Judiciary. In Singapore, it's the Singapore Academy of Law. So there are wonderful initiatives that come from the top down there. Convening areas can be the law societies and or the bar association. So those can be ways in which you can pull the different stakeholders together. We in Hong Kong, in fact, we started in a law school, right, at LITE Lab. So the idea is that, you need impartial kind of platforms in which to pull people together so they can pull together the lone wolves, right, into a pack. But you do need a safe place where people are genuinely willing and able to share because of the competitive elements that we have. And you also have to remember that there are worlds within firms, right? The law firm, you've got the fee earners versus the so-called non-fee earners, but that includes very important people like the knowledge management folk and the technology folk, right? Within corporate, as you would well know, you've got legal and compliance, but you also have ITS, you've got the COPSEC kind of folk, in terms of security. So there are different stakeholders within those aspects as well. And that's where, that's one of the reasons why I'm willing to spend time with an organization like ALITA, where the aim is to try to bring all the different stakeholders together in a non-competitive kind of way to encourage that sharing.
Super. And I think platforms like yours, like ours, joining forces globally are an additional magnet, hopefully, to bring people together. And I just wanted to call out MinLaw, Ministry of Law in Singapore, and the Department of Justice Hong Kong, really doing an amazing job strategizing in a very holistic way, bringing stakeholders together so that this is not just coming from the top, but really having the ecosystem contributing to this change is just an amazing observation that I can share here as well. So moving to the next and last topic in our podcast today, venture capital versus human capital, money versus people. We have seen billions of dollars invested into legal, reg, and compliance technology, and it's, I would say, a bet of the investors that their systems, the ones that they back with capital, will at least partially, if not largely, replace lawyers and capture this services market. What is your prediction here when you see all these monies poured into some, not many, legal tech solutions? Is this a winner takes it all bet? And where's the human element in it?
Actually, after I left the bank at Credit Suisse, I actually went into startup land and spent more time in fintech. And so, and that's why I've been immersed in the startup ecosystem. So VC money push founders towards expansion, right? So they want high level growth, and then if the firms have the deep capability, then to do R&D. But that's where, as you highlight, there's a lot of money going into certain areas. But I think with professional services, they tend to buy more on trust and the ability to show that you're solving a real problem that they care about and that they can prove rather than diminishes. And then also in this case, because it's a people business, it needs to be in line with readjustment, as we talked about, of the business model. So with respect to a winners take all, I mean, in the legal AI kind of LLM world, it may initially look that way, given the amount of money and consolidation that's currently happening. One needs to recall, I think, a law firm and a legal department may not invest in more than one legal AI system, right? So if you're going to do one, that's where the potential winner takes all comes in. But what's interesting that's been arising are the new agentic workflow builder, right? So that allows users to actually pick and choose which LLMs they want for different purposes. And then it's rise the more provocative question, right? Is legal AI mainly an LLM wrapper? And that's not meant to be a pejorative term. It's just a recognition of what it is. And if so, might some users then use their own proprietary data to seek to solve their own workflows if they can easily and economically do so? Now, not everybody wants to be a DIYer to do it themselves, but I think, the emergence of these agentic workflow builders and some new open source platforms as well allows for more flexibility beyond the one-size-fits-all, winner-takes-all as a provocation.
But staying on the agentic offerings are advanced solutions requiring advanced organizations. And I do not see this at scale yet. What's your time prediction when this will kick in and most likely have an even more fundamental impact on the profession?
So two things. Some of them are quite advanced, I do agree. But increasingly, you have more and more no-code type agentic flows, right? So that are meant to be easier to create your own agentic flows. In my class last semester, my students actually worked on some of those that helped compliance companies create compliance alerts, right? And automate those using agentic flows. In terms of the timeline, I think it may surprise you, but I think what you are totally right about is not everybody wants to do it themselves. Right? They do not have the skill set, they do not have the staff, they don't know how to manage this process, they may not know their workflows. So I think they may well hire third parties to come in, or if somebody has already created something off the shelf, that might well be of interest to them. So I think my point about the agentic elements is that it allows for those who are willing and able to build something more bespoke to use that. And I think, again, as I mentioned earlier on, don't underestimate the concerns around confidentiality and client confidentiality. One of the things I had heard was that, when I was at Legal Tech Talk and my panel earlier last month, was the law firms being told by clients that, give us an option to tick no for LLM. Clients actually telling the law firm saying, look, if you want to use this tech, that's fine, but I reserve the right to say, no, you can't use it in these circumstances.
Interesting. Before we wrap up, again, the human aspect, capital versus people. If you start deploying these agents, which are promoted as human substitutes to a large degree, what does it mean really on your FTE baseline? Because there is an ROI calculation, as you say, and you have to shift budget. You're not going to probably print money to afford these tools. So what's the consequence literally for a law firm or in-house team deploying these agents conducting human services in essence?
So therein lies the core of the future of work question. And as I remind folk, I now work in a law school. And so I am really worried about where my students are going to get to, right? And so to me, that's why I want to ensure that they have the skill set in terms of entering this new workplace. Now, from an employer point of view, I had lunch with a senior partner last week, and she was all for having more agents than associates. So I think we are entering the phase of managing both humans and agents going forward. The question is then, as some of those agents may use legal LLMs, but maybe they may even use general LLMs. So I think to future-proof one as much as possible, that's where I hearten, and that's one of the things I try to do at LITE Lab. We want the next generation to be equipped to have the agility of the mindset because the technology changes so quickly. So how can they adjust to that and be willing and able to adjust to that? I'd be willing to enable to roll out their sleeves to try out the new tools, have the critical mind to use them in a way that can assess them so that they're not, you know when it's wrong and what it's good at and what it's not good at, right? So I think, so these are the skill sets I think that our future lawyers will need. And it might well be the case in future, there will be legal departments may shrink. So as you may know, you were in-house. From a legal in-house perspective, it's all about cost. So it's all about reducing expense, right? And that's your main KPI, to be honest, right? From a senior management point of view, besides your day job, of course, of making sure there are no problems and keeping the company out of trouble, right? So that's where you focus on cost. But for the law firms, they actually have the focus on the revenue side. And that's when OpenAI came out with that 200,000 or whatever it was model, some people said that's ridiculous. But if you go to a Wall Street firm and that's how much an associate costs, a mid-level associate, and by the way, if the LLM can do the work of 5 mid-level associates, that's a good deal. But now as the costs get lower, right? And you can do it yourself and you can do the more bespoke, I think we're in for, again, interesting times.
Wonderful. We need to produce another podcast on the future of legal profession and how universities and professors like you play a role, because there's also a huge disconnect that needs to be exposed. But we wanted to offer 30 plus minutes at the 30th episode of the GOLT Talk. And I must say it's been a wild ride and an amazing exchange. Fast-paced, from Wall Street to lone wolves, from different universes to venture capital moonshots. Really, really refreshing and enlightening talking to you, Brian. And if there's one takeaway from me, and I reserve the last word for you, on your takeaway, transformation is not a destination. It's a test of courage, honesty, vision, and collaboration. And it takes people like you to bring folks together, to give energy, nudge a little bit, and to move to the next level. So what's your takeaway overall, not only from this podcast, from where this profession is at this point, and what's the biggest promise maybe that we can give the future lawyers?
Firstly, thanks so much, Tom, for inviting me to join you. It's been great fun, and I look forward to collaborating with you more, especially in this region. I guess my general takeaways are kind of twofold. The first is really, this is moving so quickly. None of us alone has the answer. So ideally, we all work together, right? As we kind of learn the new technologies together, we learn the pros and the cons as they emerge. We experiment with the new kind of business models. So I think the community is really important. The second one is I would add is the importance of a change in mindset. Right. So often people talk about the skill set one needs to do to train to use these tools. And I totally agree with that. But more importantly, it's that mindset shift that, guess what, this is moving so quickly. So you must be willing and able to try new things. What you assumed for the last model may not be the same for the next model that comes and the model that comes after that. And so I think that the willingness to embrace that mindset is particularly challenging and important for legal profession who actually are precedent-based, right? We like we like precedents. So I think that would be the great challenge that I think as we shift that, then the legal profession can change itself better, and it also can better serve the clients that we want to serve better as well.
Fantastic. So with that, we close this recording. Brian Tang, co-chair of ALITA, appointee of the Hong Kong Department of Justice's Consultation Group on Law Tech Development, and a member of the Hong Kong University's Faculty of Law. Brian, there will be many opportunities talking to you again, collaborating with you, as you said. And with that, I wish you a good weekend. Greetings to Hong Kong. It's been a pleasure having this podcast with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Tom.